Hi and welcome to What's New in JFrog Artifactories webinar. So just for the quality audio purposes, everybody would be on mute. There is a Q&A tab in your Zoom window. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A tab, and we are more than happy to answer those questions towards the end of the webinar. This webinar is going to be recorded, and the recording is going to be available in a week on our YouTube channel as well. I'm also joined by Shlomi Kriheli, who is the product manager of Artifactory. Shlomi, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, guys. So yeah, as Simon said, I'm the Artifactory's product manager, and let's enjoy this webinar.
Great. Well, talking about me, I'm Mansimran Singh, solutions engineer with JFrog, part of the solution engineering team, working with more than 4,000 customers, integrating Artifactory into their architectures. And today we are going to talk about what's new in Artifactory version 5. Now, we have been putting in a lot of efforts to put in a lot many new features which have been requested by the customers. Now, some of these features were already in the roadmap, and some of them were brought in as new feature, totally new ideas. And along with Shlomi, we are going to see what those new features are, and we are going to do the demo so that everybody can see how to use these features and how to incorporate into your existing Artifactories infrastructure as well. Great, so let's start it. Well, the very first thing, I mean, pretty much everybody's excited across the globe about JFrog Access. Now, what Access is all about? So as you can see that it's a unified security service to rule them all. And when we say to rule them all, it's basically to use everything which is associated with Artifactory. Now, in terms of technical specifications, basically Access Service is a token manager in which you can create the tokens. And these tokens are unified in terms of the users, groups, and permission management. You can also do the service discovery and registry. And essentially, it would just behave as a single sign-on kind of thing. Now, the advantage of creating the tokens is that it's a faceless user, basically. You have so many automations happening with the CI/CD pipeline. For example, you have your CI servers, just like Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, TFS, VSTS, and many others. Now, when you are using these kind of automation tools, basically you don't want to leak out your passwords or API keys or anything associated with these particular users. And you know what's the risk of that. So what JFrog came up with is a token service where you can create a token, and that token is a faceless user, as I said, and that token will be used to map with your existing user, but that would not be visible on your UI. So that's the advantage of creating the tokens. Now, there are other advantages as well. Then you can create a circle of trust where you create a token on one Artifactory server, and that can be used in the same circle of trust on your other Artifactory instances as well. Now, most of our enterprise customers, they have multiple data centers. That means they have multiple Artifactory instances as well. And when I say that, you can use the same token on the same circle of trust. That means in any organization, if you have multiple Artifactory instances, if you create a token on one instance, that token can be used in the other instances in the same organization as well. Kriheli, you would like to add something to this?
Yeah, of course. So as some of you already know, those of you who are actually using Access tokens, so Access was already exists from Artifactory 5.0. But actually until Artifactory 5.4, which is the latest Artifactory version that we came with, it was in an embedded mode. So in Artifactory 5.4, we separated it to be in a different WAR file that actually comes in a bundle mode with Artifactory. While our vision is, as Monsimo described, is to have a centralized service to actually manage the authentication across all JFrog products. So as you can see in this slide, today what the service actually, what the Access service actually brings is the Access tokens management. And Monsimo, you will just demonstrate how to create Access tokens for non-existing users in a second. And so one of the common use cases for automation tools today is to actually give them the capabilities to deploy and resolve artifacts from to and from Artifactory. While you want to do that without creating any dumb users to do so. So if you're using Jenkins agents, for example, and so on, access tokens today gives you just that, to create these access tokens. The rest of the bullets in the slide, as you can see, is capabilities that Access will provide in upcoming versions. And in a roadmap, it's going to be across all of JFrog products. So we're going to provide features like single sign-on, SAML, LDAP integration with both X-ray and mission control. So you have a lot to expect in the JFrog access area. And I think it's time for a demo. And Simran?
Great. I mean, I'm very excited about this integration with the other JFrog products as well. Apart from Artifactory, which you already mentioned, it's X-ray and mission control. That would provide a lot of open opportunities for the other customers to try out tokens with the other products as well. And now is the demo time to create a scope token. And we are going to create a token on an Artifactory instance. And then we are going to use this particular token to deploy a file into an Artifactory instance to a repo which the token has access, as well as to a repo to which it doesn't have an access as well. So we'll see both the behaviors in both the conditions, that what happens if a token is having the permission, as well as if the token is not having a permission, and how to get a feeling that this particular thing is being done by the token and not by any particular user. So for that, let me go to my Artifactory instance. As you can see that this is my Artifactory instance in which we are going to create the tokens. And if I go into my admin tab, we now have a special dedicated tab towards accessing these tokens. And that particular tab is under the security, which is called as access tokens. And if I now click on access tokens, as you can see that I'm already having a token, which is called as test. Now, this particular test token was created at this point of time, that was yesterday, with the expiry date mentioned as well. And this token is having another flag, which is called as refreshable is equal to true. That means it automatically gets refreshed after it gets expired. Important thing to be considered about these tokens is that if you don't provide any refreshable flag, the token is automatically going to be expired in 3600 seconds. Now, if I go to my console, here is the list of the commands which we are going to apply to create the tokens. This is a particular command in order to create a token. So I'm just going to copy this command and going to explain that as well. Now, as you can see that I'm just putting up my curl -u admin password. That means I am logged in as an admin user, and I'm going to create a token which would be associated with my admin user. And then another flag, which it says that what is the name of the token which I want to provide. So in this particular case, I'm just putting up my name, that's Mansimran, but you can provide in any random or any arbitrary name in order to associate that token with your particular user. Now, most of the times, automatically, if another user, apart from the admin, is creating a token, they would automatically associate that token name with their own name. So just to have a better visualization. But as I said, that you don't have any condition to put in your name. You can put in any random name as well, just like test123 or your company name or your project name or your team name or anything. And then you're going to provide a scope as well. That means which part of the group this token should be associated as. So I am associating this particular token, whose name is Mansimran, to be part of two groups, which is called as access group 1 and access group 2. And in the end, I'm going to provide another flag, which it says that refreshable is equal to true. That means whenever this token is going to expire, it's going to be automatically refreshed for another 3600 seconds. Now, this is not a mandatory flag. If you want to delete it, your token is going to expire in 3600 seconds, and that's it. That token would be no more be able to use to your the features which you are going to use with that particular token. That's the only thing associated with this refreshable flag. So now, if I'm going to create this one, let me go ahead and create it. So as soon as I clicked enter, as you can see that it provided me that the scope of this particular token is now under access group 1 and under access group 2. Refresh token ID expires in 3600 seconds, and it's automatically going to be refreshed after 3600 seconds. Now, if I want to see whether that particular token is being associated with this particular Artifactory instance or not, again, the same thing. We will be going to the Artifactory instance. I'm just going to refresh this page. Voila. And now you can see that the new token is there, whose name is Mansimran, with the token ID. with the issuance date and the expiry date, which is the default one. But since I have given the refreshable is going to true as a flag, that means after 3600 seconds, it's going to be automatically refreshed. The next thing, since a token has been created, now what are the operations which we can do with this token? As you can see that this particular token is part of the access group 1 and access group 2 groups, which are having the permissions to deploy the artifacts only to two repos, that's access repo 1 and access repo 2. Now I'm going to deploy a file to an access repo 1 so that we can check what is the advantage of creating these tokens. So again, the same thing, I'm just going to put in another command, which it says that curl -u. And now this time, instead of providing my username, that was admin, I'm going to provide the username of the token, which was Mansimran. And then I'm going to provide the access token as a kind of password. So I'm just copying this particular access token. And then I'm going to provide the flag in order to deploy a particular file, which is -t. And then the name of the file which I'm going to deploy, that is text_file.txt, which is just a simple txt file. And then I'm going to provide the Artifactory instance name, which is localhost 8081. And then I'm going to provide the repo name, and which is access_repo1. Great. And now you can see that particular file has been deployed, and it automatically gives me its SHA-1 as well as MD5 as well as the path where that is being created, along with the URL if you want to directly download this particular file. And again, if I go back to my Artifactory instance, since this repo was empty, and if I now refresh this particular repo, I can see the same text_file.txt, which is now there. And now you can see its checksum as well as MD5. What if I want to put in this particular text file to another repo on which this particular token is not having an access? And that particular repo is, let's say it's example repo local. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to do the same thing. And this time, instead of the access repo 1, I'm just going to put in the example repo local. And now you can see immediately it gave me an error that is with the status code as 403, which means that user Mansimran, which was a token name, is not permitted to deploy this particular file into this particular repo, because this particular repo was not part of the group on which we gave the permission to this particular token. So it was as easy as to use these particular APIs in order to deploy a file, to download the files, to have a permission on these. And now if I go back to this particular repo, if I go into the effective permissions, you can see under the users, this particular token is not there. So that's what I meant when I say that it's a faceless user, that you won't be able to see these kind of tokens apart from the admin tab or apart from the access tokens tab on any of the other tabs. And if I go into the groups tab, I can see that the only groups are access group 1 and access group 2, on which I have given the permissions to the token. And the permission targets, you can see that this particular token was part of the access permission as well, on which two repos were there, access repo 1 and access repo 2. So that's a way. It was pretty easy to create the tokens, to use them as well, and to manage them as well. Going back. So this was about the tokens. And the next thing for which, again, the whole of JFrog is pretty excited, is introducing the checksum-based deployments as SHA-256 instead of SHA-1. Now, the reason why we are going to SHA-256, pretty much everybody knows that this is a stronger content validation instead of SHA-1. And secondly, Google also detected some SHA-1 collisions, which are pretty rare. But still, since they have proved that SHA-1 collisions can occur, and we decided to provide the security to our users. So that's the reason that we immediately took a decision to move from SHA-1 to SHA-256. Even before Google detected these collisions, we made the decision to move from SHA-1 to SHA-256. And in the next minor version, we are just going to have this as well. Now, important question arises that for existing customers who already have the SHA-1 based deployments, how they are going to be converted to SHA-256. Krihali, you would like to put in some light on this one?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, it is really important for me to share that the behavior is going to be exactly the same as today, meaning that upon an artifact deployment, Artifactory is just going to calculate the SHA-256 value on top of the SHA-1 and MD5, meaning that nothing is going to change. I mean, it's not going to break anything. That's for starters. And as for existing environments that are going to upgrade to a version that includes this SHA-256, so there is going to be a background task that will calculate the SHA-256 for all the existing artifacts. Meaning that if you already have a running instance with, I don't know, millions of artifacts, for example, you will not have to do anything. I mean, any proactive operation in order for Artifactory to calculate the new signature for the existing artifacts. So as soon as you upgrade, the background task will do it for you. Of course, it might take a while if you have a huge environment. It might take a while to complete, especially for large instances. But you will be able to track it and view Artifactory logs and monitor the progress. It will continuously print the statuses and the percentage of artifacts complete. So this is very important for me to clarify. Other than that, we do support SHA-256 calculation, but that's on demand today. Meaning that if you want to and except actually for Docker and Debian, which we calculate the SHA-256 by default. But today we do offer the calculation of SHA-256. That's on demand using the UI or REST API. These REST APIs, by the way, they are going to continue to be supported, but they will be kind of redundant since Artifactory will do it for you by default. So that's also important to note. Simon, do you want to add?
No, I mean, you pretty much did explain everything. And as I said, for the existing users, this would be a painless migration, and they won't be feeling any difference when the migration is going to take place. They can still use Artifactory and they can still use the artifacts without any considerations, without any kind of special things to be considered when the migration is going to take place. And of course, better the security, the better the pains. So obviously, if anybody is having SHA-256 instead of SHA-1, they would be at a much better place in terms of the security of the artifacts instead of the SHA-1. So that is our commitment towards our users, that we are always going to provide you the better alternatives in terms of the security. And that is one of the ways that we are implementing that as well. Continuing to the other features which we have to show you today. The next one is Evenbase pull replication. Now, many customers, in fact, as I said, that we have widespread of customers ranging from banking to automobile to software-based or other industries as well. Pretty much everybody knows that we already have an event-based push replication, and pretty much every customer did ask for the event-based pull replication. And now we are here to have you given the event-based pull replication, which just works like the event-based push replication. The only difference is that now it's being enabled on the remote repos. The same way we were implementing the star topologies or the mesh topologies, now you can set up the event-based pull replication in these topologies as well. And the advantages is the artifacts are immediately available across all the data centers on which the Artifactory remote repos are available. And it's event-based. That means that as soon as the CRUD activity happens, at that very moment, only the artifacts would be replicated to the other Artifactory instances. The other advantage is that, which is already available in the event-based push replication, is the checksum-based replication. Meaning that whenever an artifact lands in a repo, that means that particular Artifactory instance is going to send a checksum to the remote Artifactory instance. And if the remote Artifactory instance replies 200 OK, that means I'm already having an artifact. There's no need for the replication. But if it replies 404, that means that particular checksum is missing over there, and only then the replication is initiated, saving a lot of time, money, bandwidth, and resources. So that is again one of the ways we optimize these kind of replications. Other thing is that the configuration of that particular repo is being controlled by the remote side admin. So only that particular admin can control the configurations of the repo and the Evenbase pull replication. And apart from the Evenbase pull replication, you always have the option of a cron-based replication, which is a mandatory one, which we are going to show in a short while as well. And now is the time to demo to show you how to do the configuration of a remote repo to do an Evenbase pull replication. So for that, I'm having two Artifactory instances and I have named them accordingly. One is a master pull. That means that this is my base Artifactory. And I have another Artifactory instance, which I have opened in another browser, which is called a slave pull. That means slave is going to pull the artifacts from the master. Now, I've already defined some repos, but I'm going to define some new repos over here. And for that, as I mentioned, that the remote admin can configure a remote repository to do the Evenbase pull replication. In order to do that, you go into the admin under the repositories tab, click on the remote, and then log in, and then click the new button. And then you just decide what kind of package you want to pull. Let's assume it's Maven, and you provide some name. So I would say webinar demo event based pull. And now you need to provide the URL of your remote Artifactory instance from where you want to pull in the artifacts. And I would take this one and I would just copy the path. And now as soon as I put in the path, if I going to test, Artifactory automatically discovers that the remote instance is also Artifactory, and that's the way it provides me to create a smart repository, which is from Artifactory to Artifactory. And not just the artifacts, you can replicate your properties as well as the statistics along with this replication. So I'm going to click this as well, report the statistics, sync the properties, and source absence detection as well. And now I can click OK. And since I need to provide the authentication for the Artifactory to pull in the artifacts from the master, I need to provide the username and password as well. And if I click test, it automatically says successfully connected to the server. That is one of the checks you can do before initiating the replication. And now if I go into the replications tab, there is enable active replication of this repository. And there's another flag which is called as enable event replication, which is an optional one. And if I click this one, and as I said, cron based is always a mandatory one. For that, you have the cron tutorial being available as well in order to set up the cron expressions. This is one of the expressions which I'm going to provide over there. That means it's going to trigger an replication at 12 p.m. noon every day. So if I'm going to put in the cron expression over here, automatically Artifactory discovers the meaning of that expression. And I'm also going to do the sync deletes as well as the sync artifacts. Again, if I click on the test button, it says that the full replication configured successfully. Now, if you click save and finish, and if I go into the artifacts tab, now you can see that the webinar demo event-based pull is created. Along with that, a cache repo is also being created as well, which is being empty. And as you can see, there's no artifacts right now over here. But now if I go back to my master Artifactory instance, and if I go to deploy an artifact over here, which is a simple jar file that's multi2 3.5.22 version. And as soon as I deploy the file, it automatically discovers its CAF coordinates, that's a group ID, artifact ID, and the version number, and what type of file it is. And if I'm going to put deploy, and if I'm going to go back to the slave Artifactory instance, and if I just refresh this one, you can see that the cache is filled up with the same artifact with the multi2 version 3.5.22. Along with that, it automatically discovers all the things associated with it. That means the properties and the statistics. If I go to the properties tab, you can see that the Artifactory internal tag, Artifactory replication time initiation, ending time, and the status, whether it was okay or not successful. So now you can see that it was an event-based. As soon as I deployed an artifact to the base Artifactory instance, the remote Artifactory instance automatically pulled up that particular artifact. And if I go into the base instance, you can see the definitions of that particular instance as well. So it's going to give you the status as well, whether this particular artifact is cached or not. So that's a way you can check whether that particular artifact is available or not. So great. This was about how you can do the event-based pull replications, and this was a demo about it. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to type in the Q&A tab, and we're going to answer those questions towards the end of the webinar as well. Now, this is going to be available in the enterprise version of Artifactory. Those of you are wondering that how they can do this experiment. So, Shlomi, can you provide some estimations on when this particular feature would be available for our enterprise customers?
Yes, so this one is going to be available on the next Artifactory version, actually, which is aimed for about, in a few weeks. It's going to be already available. I do want to add a few more notes about this one. So first, I think, the great benefit of this feature is that whenever a new artifact is being deployed, actually, into your local repository, into one of them, so it's going to be immediately available on every Artifactory instance, as you've just seen. And that's even if the replication did not fully complete. So this is crucial for automation processes where you want to make the artifacts available in all data centers as soon as they are deployed. So even if as I said, even if the replication is not, it is not completed, meaning the cache was not populated by the time the request came in the remote instance, it will still fall back to the lazy caching that is already available by the normal remote mechanism. So that's really cool. Other than that, another thing to note is that feeding the cron expression is still going to be mandatory, since we use the cron expression to catch up. Meaning that if you had your instance down for maintenance, for example, and you bring it up, we still need to use the cron expression for catching up the artifacts that we did not replicate by that time. So that's also important to note. I think we can go on.
Great. So this was about the Evenbase pull, and going back to the presentation. And the next is certificate authorization in the remote repos. Now, there are few remote repos, which are the private remote repos, which does requires the certificate-based authorizations. Now, the example of these kind of repos is the Red Hat Network repositories, which does not simply follow the basic authentication, and they want the certificates-based authentication as well. Now, the advantage is that it also supports the self-signed certificates. Now, apart from the remote repos, how you can take the advantage of these. So basically what you can do is that you can use the self-signed certificates to have the secure communication between different Artifactory instances. And the way to do is that we'll go through a demo in order to show you how that is done. Again, going back to my base Artifactory instance, if I go into the admin tab, there's a remote repo. And there is this Red Hat repository, Red Hat Network repository, which does requires the certificate-based authorization and not just the basic authentication. And for that, in the advanced tab, we introduced a new tab over here, in which you can put in your certificates. And as you can see that if I do not provide a certificate over here, which is empty right now, and if I click save, and if I go back, I click the test button, it automatically instantly gives me an issue or the error that it's unable to find the valid certification path to the requested target. So that's a way, without the certificate, you cannot authenticate yourself to use this particular repo. And to use the certificates, you go into the security tab, and there is a certificates tab where you put in your PEM file, and you can simply delete or you can add your PEM file over here. Now, since the PEM file is already there, I'm just going to associate this file to the repo which we created, going back into the configuration, going back into the advanced tab. And now I'm going to associate this particular certificate with this particular repo. That's Red Hat. Click save and finish. And for that, I'm having another Artifactory instance on this is already done. And if I go over into the remote repo, logging back again. And now, if I go into the advanced tab, you can see that the test123 certificate is associated with it. And if I go into the basic tab, if I'm going to click the test button, it says connection successfully to that particular repo. Now, again, if you just want to verify one more time that what would be the implication if I just remove the certificate, again, if I click save and finish, and again try to re-authenticate yourself, it says that the connection failed, error 403 forbidden. That means now you can no more authenticate yourself to use this particular remote repo, which is a Red Hat based one. And these kind of repos does require the certificates-based authorizations. Now, this was a very, very important feature which were requested by most of our enterprise customers, that they were not able to use the Red Hat repos without the usage of this certificate. So this feature is again available. And now you can use these certificates to authenticate yourself. Clearly, I'm missing something you want to add?
Yeah, I do want to add one thing, is that Red Hat is, is a good example for a public repository that requires indeed a certificate to be installed. But if you, for example, have multiple instances in your organization, the ability to use self-signed certificates across your multiple instances, it's a great method of ensuring that the communication between your instances is done in a secured manner, and only by an approved certificate, even if you generate it yourself. I mean, if it's a self-signed certificate. One more thing is that you can actually mix between basic authentication and the client certificate. I mean, you don't necessarily need to use the certificate instead of basic authentication. It's more to ensure that all of your communication is secured. So this is also something to consider if you have multiple instances. This is something that, as Monsignor mentioned, it's something that a lot of our customers were waiting for. So you now can use the Red Hat Networks repositories.
Great. That was a very, very important point to be discussed over here, the mixture of the basic authentication and the certificate-based authentication. And now going back to discover some other new great features as well. And this was about the authentication of the remote repos with the certificates. And the next is on the similar lines of the security, that now you can associate your SAML users to your Artifactory groups as well. Again, many of our customers were waiting for this feature where they can simply map the SAML attributes to the groups in Artifactory, and they can simply inherit those permissions which were assigned to those groups as well. Meaning that if you already have a SAML group inside the Artifactory, and if you delete that particular user, and if that particular user is going to log back again, it's automatically going to inherit those permissions because that particular group is being mapped with their SAML groups as well. And these permissions are resolved at the runtime. And in order to have the better visualization about this feature, let's again go through the demo. And for that, first of all, I would like to show you the configuration of my Okta account, which is a SAML-based authentication, that I'm already having a SAML group inside that particular server. And if I show you the users which are part of that particular group is Ariel Seftel, there's another Ariel Seftel which is having a different ID, and along with me. And now if I go to an instance that's having an association with this particular instance, you can see that it automatically signed me as an Ariel because Ariel is signed over here as well. And now I want to show you the users. And now you can see that the user A_Seftel is already part of that one. And we have the group called as SAML group, which is mapped with the Okta SAML group. And if I go into this SAML group, you can see that right now there is no user associated with it as well. And if I go back and if I delete this particular user, and now you can see that A_Seftel user is not part of this particular Artifactory instance. And if I click a private window, and if I try to log into this particular window, it automatically asks me for my Okta user ID and the password, which I'm going to provide the ID of the deleted user. And now I'm going to provide the password. And if I'm going to sign in, it's automatically going to give me the permissions at runtime. And it's automatically going to map me to the SAML group inside Artifactory, for which the mapping is already done with the Okta SAML group. And if I go into the artifacts, you can see that this particular user is having the permissions to only access the SAML repo, because we have defined that under the SAML group, only and only that particular user is having the access to the SAML repo. So that's the way, even if that particular user is logging in the first time, it automatically gets all those permissions which are being associated to the SAML group inside Artifactory, and it automatically inherits those permissions from there because of the mapping between the SAML groups as well as the Artifactory groups. Shlomi, you would like to add something over here?
Yeah, one thing to add here is that this cool feature is also going to work with combination with your LDAP. I mean, if you have an LDAP server, which is for most organizations they're using an LDAP server, you will be able to associate the imported LDAP groups. If you have LDAP groups that are imported to Artifactory, you're going to be able to associate them with the SAML user. And that is, I mean, we know that's a very common use case among our users using the combination of SAML and LDAP. And so, if you want to manage the permission based on an LDAP group and give it to a specific SAML group, as Simon just demonstrated, it's going to be. I mean, the configuration is quite easy. It's only a matter of a new checkbox that we've added. I think that's basically it on this one.
So for the users who are waiting on how to do this integration, so if you go inside the SAML SSO, over here you need to provide your SAML login URL and the SAML logout URL, which you would be getting from your SAML account. And apart from that, you need to give in your certificate. And the important thing is that you need to provide your group attribute, which I have done the same specifications inside my Okta account, and the email attribute as email, which again I have specified over there. So basically, you are going to give in the same details what you have provided into your Okta account or the SAML account, and you're going to provide the same details over there. And you just click this checkbox, which says that auto create Artifactory users. So what it does is that whenever the user logs in first time, it automatically creates that particular user an Artifactory user, and it gives the permissions to be associated with the groups as well. So this was about this new feature. Going back into the presentation. And the next thing is sorting and filtering your tree. Well, even I have myself been waiting for this feature. And if any of the user who's having hundreds of repos inside Artifactory, they can feel the pain that how they actually search these kind of repos or the packages inside the tree, if anybody is using the UI. And now this particular feature makes you to browse and to sort your repos and to sort your artifacts much more clean and a much more easier way with a new clickable button, which is for specifically filtering and sorting your tree as well. The other advantage is that it's per user based or per browser based, meaning that you can have your own sorted tree and another user can have their own sorted tree according to the conditions which they want to provide over there. For example, I can say, give me only the Maven repos, and inside the Maven repos, give me only the remote repos, and inside the remote repos, give me only the cached ones. So that's another way I can provide the condition, or I can provide the condition that give me only and only Maven and Docker repos and only the local ones. So that's a way I can provide in the different conditions with the help of the checkboxes, which is being provided over there. And you can have your own tree, which is just specifically made out for you. And you just don't need to juggle between the different repos that how I need to turn to a repo among hundreds and thousands of the repos being provided over there. Another cool thing is that new favorite repo feature, which is being coming over there. So when you have these repos, you can mark some of these repos as your favorite ones. For example, if a particular user is working on a project and for that particular project, specific repos are there, and they just don't need to refer to other repos which are being shown in the tree, they can just simply mark those repos as a private ones on which they work frequently. And that would be given into your conditions that now I want to refer to the favorite repos as well. This feature is coming very, very, very soon. But apart from that, I would like to show you how the other sorting and filtering your tree works. So let me go through the demo and show you how that is done as well. Again, for that, I'm having another Artifactory instance, and here is the Artifactory instance. If I go to the Artifacts tab, sorry, not this one, that was in Safari. Okay, so here's the one, and as you can see that there is another icon which gives you a tick mark kind of symbol, where if you click on this particular icon, it gives you the filtering and sorting window. And over here, since I have provided Docker, so that's the reason it was only showing me the Docker repository. But now I can provide a different condition that instead of Docker, give me Maven repos. And now if I go back, it shows me the Maven repos. And now going back, I say not the local ones, but give me only and only the virtual Maven repos. And now if I click, and it gives me only and only 2 repos, which are of kind Maven and which are of virtual type. So I can see their identification as virtual. But as I said, that you can provide in the different conditions that apart from Maven, give me a Conan repo, and apart from Conan, give me a Docker repo. And other condition is, instead of the virtual, give me only and only the remote ones of these 3 package types. That's Conan, Docker, and Maven. And let me add one more condition, that apart from the remote, give me the local ones as well. And if I go back, now you can see that there's a Conan local, there's a Docker local, there's a Maven local, and apart from that, there is a remote repo for the Maven as well, which is JCenter. So that's a way you can have your own private window for your artifacts and for your own specific repos on which you're working. And that's a way you can remove the cluttering of the repositories, and you can only and only concentrate on the repos which are only and only being used by you. And as I said, this particular feature is specific to the user, so you can set up your own sorted tree for yourself, and another team member of your team who's working on some different repos, they can have their own window of these particular sorted trees, and that's a way you can work effectively. Any new thing to be added over here, Shlomi?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, I think it's it's a great usability feature. I know that a lot, tons of customers, even inside, here in JFrog, it was requested a lot by the developers, and we know that sometimes you just want to filter out some repositories, or sort them by the order that that is convenient for you. So this is something that I'm really happy with, and I'm sure that a lot of customers are going to like it too. So one upcoming, you cannot see it here, but as Massimo described before, there is another feature that that we're going to introduce, which is the favorites. It's still not implemented, and it's still in progress. So you will be able to also, one filter is going to be according to your favorites. So you will be able to choose only, the repositories that are relevant for you, and filter out other repositories that are not. So this is another, this is a very cool usability feature that I'm sure a lot of customers are going to enjoy from.
Great. Do you want to provide any insights about the release date of these features?
Yeah, so this is also, the favorite repositories are still in progress, so I cannot provide a target version, but the sorting and filter capabilities are going to be part of the next release.
Great. So we have a lot of things being awaited by the customers, and that's a wonderful news. Going back to the presentation, we have another cool feature to show you, and the next is admin permissions for the groups. Yay! So up till now, for the bigger corporations, only and only one user was dedicated as an admin user, and they had always been very pushy to us that we want some other users to be made as admin, for which there was a specific step that they need to create a user and then need to provide the admin privileges. But now you can import the groups from the LDAP and the crowd servers, and the certain people under those groups, which would be named as an admin group or whatever, they all can be made admin just with a single checkbox. So now if you want to make 20 people as admin for, let's say, 20,000 users, you can simply go and import a user from LDAP in which all the admin people or supposedly admin people would be there. And as soon as that particular group is being imported into Artifactory, with a single checkbox, all the users under that particular group would be given as admin permissions. And I can show you the demo on how this is being done as well. So going to the demo, and let me again switch to my local Artifactory instance. And if I now show you the users, okay, this is the one. If I now show you the users, you can see that there's a user 1 and user 2, for which I want to make them as part of the group, which is called as an admin group. And again, I go into the groups, which is having an admin group. And this admin group is having a checkbox which is called as admin privileges, in which two users are there, user 1 and user 2. As I said, that you can import that particular group with the predefined users from your LDAP and your crowd servers as well. But right now I'm just showing you a group which is having the users and a checkbox which is admin privileges. And this is not having any permission. So now an important part of the demo which I want to show is that if I revoke the admin privileges, now I have revoked the privileges from these two users as part of the group. And if I click save, and now I log out from this instance and I log back with the same user, that's user 1, and log in and go into the artifacts tab, you can see that you do not have any permissions defined for any repo because I have revoked each and everything from these users. So now you can see that these particular users are not having any kind of permissions to do anything inside Artifactory. And secondly, the admin tab is disabled for these users. And now if I log out from this user, log back in and give them the admin privileges one more time. And again, click save, again, log out, and now log back with a user 1, which was up till now not having any permission. Now suddenly he becomes an admin. And now you can see every tab, first of all, is enabled for that particular user. The admin tab is enabled. Now you can do every functionality what admin was able to do that. And if I now go into the artifacts tab, you can see that I'm now, this particular user is now being able to access each and every repo which was available. So this is one of the great advantages of associating multiple users as admin users as part of the group. And you can create that particular group into your LDAP servers or your crowd servers, just the way you are already doing right now. And then just import this particular user group, which might be called as an admin group. And as soon as you import it and just given a single checkbox, admin privileges, all your users as part of the group would become the admin users. Shlomi, anything to be added over here?
Just another feature that was waiting in a public Jira for a while, and it had a lot of votes and watches, and so I'm sure a lot of customers and a lot of organizations that are using LDAP or crowd servers are going to enjoy this one.
Right, you're absolutely right, and I myself can relate to 20 customers whom I have visited in their campuses, and they told me that, we have thousands of users, but we have very less admins to be controlled for controlling these users. And what we want to do is that we just want to have these users instead of a local user inside Artifactory. We just want to have these users to be created as group inside our LDAP so that we can better visualize who's having what kind of permissions, and we can better use the capabilities as well. And that's the way now you can now they can access these groups as the admin groups, and they would be really, really happy with this particular feature as well. So this was about the new features which are coming up in the minor versions of Artifactory 5.4 onwards. But there would be, again, many other new features which are being requested by our customers, which would be coming into the future versions as well. And we are deeply impacted by the feedback which is being provided by our customers. So if you are looking for something which is not there inside Artifactory, please let us know, and we would be more than happy to incorporate those kind of features as per our roadmap in the future versions of Artifactory and the other products as well. Now is the time to take up your questions as well. So please feel free to type in your questions if you have for any of the features we discussed, or apart from that, any question you might be having for Artifactory. So, okay, so I have one question coming up by a customer who says that, does the detachment of access to be a different service affect the current behavior as well? Shlomi, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, of course. So, so the detachment of service as not an embedded service within Artifactory, it's not going to affect the behavior of Artifactory at all. It is just something that, as we said before, it's going to serve all of JFrog products in the future. But at the moment, the behavior of the access tokens that you've used, it's going to be just the same. You have absolutely nothing to be worried about. It's just that it's going to be in a different WAR file, and the behavior is going to be, it persists. So absolutely nothing, and it's not a breaking change from your side.
Okay, that's great to hear. Another question, which is a pretty common question, and sometimes the user is having some confusions regarding the event-based checkbox and the cron expression. So the question is on the similar lines that will cron expression still be mandatory when using the event-based pull replication?
Yeah. So the cron expression is still going to be mandatory, and we have to use the cron expression also in the event-based pull replication, since we use it to catch up, artifacts that were not replicated. It can be from for several reasons: maintenance, network glitch, just a failure of replicating an artifact. So we use it. We use this cron expression to just catch up, and in case of failures, for the reasons I've just mentioned, we're going to use the cron expression. So this is still going to be mandatory.
Okay, one thing just to be added over here, the same cron expression is mandatory for the event-based push replications, even though you have the event-based option over there quite long. But the same mandatory condition is for both the repos, that is event-based push or event-based pull. The cron is always and always be a mandatory option. The third question is regarding the security, that is it possible to associate a SAML user to a group that is granted with the admin permissions?
Yeah, definitely. That's also something that we thought. When we released both the SAML association with the group and the admin permissions, the admin privileges for a group. So it was in the same version. It was by intention. We wanted for SAML users to actually be able to be associated with admin with a group of admin permissions. So this is something that you definitely can configure. You can have a SAML user that is associated with a group admin privileges. Yeah.
Great. Another question which is coming for Access, that is there a UI for Access? And if there is, how do I use Access as of today? So I'll answer part of this. Yes, to some extent there is a UI just for accessing the Access tokens and not Access as a product. I think the users are getting confused because as we mentioned that Access would be deployed as a different WAR file and it would be a detachment. So they might want to ask that, just like Artifactory UI, they have a different UI for the Access as well. Shlomi, would you like to throw some light on it?
No, that's right. You can use the Access tokens is currently a read-only mode in the Artifactory UI. You still cannot create Access tokens from the UI. And you can also you can only revoke or delete an Access token, but there is no dedicated UI for the whole service. This is something that we definitely consider, but there is none at the moment.
Okay. So we still have 2-3 minutes to answer the questions before ending this webinar. So if you have any questions, please again feel free to type in the Q&A tab. Otherwise, please visit jfrog.com/webinars for the future webinars on different topics and different integrations. Sometimes we do the partner webinars as well, wherein we do the joint webinar along with the partner. And sometimes we do these kind of webinars to make the customers have some enlightenment on the new features which are being available. Other than that, as I said in the beginning, that the recording of this webinar will be available in a week on our YouTube channel as well. Apart from that, we have tons and tons of other educational videos on different features of Artifactory and some use cases and some other case studies which are being provided by our partners, by our customers, along with the videos of Swamp Up, which we did in May. So you're more than welcome to visit the YouTube channel and have access to these kind of videos. So it seems that we don't have any more questions as of today. Thank you for attending this webinar. Good luck with your Artifactory. Thank you.
Thank you.